Have you ever wondered why some days you have no energy at all and others you feel like you can conquer the world? It all stems from how filled your 5 energy buckets are. Now, I'm sure you're asking, what are these 5 energy buckets and how can I fill them to the brim? Well, great questions, and we'll be diving into that shortly. But first, if you've had any ahas or ha-has from watching our videos and want to be notified of when great new content comes out, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Also, as you're watching the video, let us know in the comments which energy bucket sustains you the most through the day. We all start each day with 5 buckets of energy filled to different levels. And each of us has a running meter of needs that we balance each day in order to keep these buckets filled. And if we ignore these needs, our energy buckets will go to empty and our behavior will be affected in dramatic ways, like decreasing the amount of control we have over ourselves and our lives. Now, Abraham Maslow famously introduced a variation of this concept widely known as Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And Maslow describes these needs as a hierarchy of motivation, where the first need must be met before moving on to address the need on the next level of the hierarchy. For example, you may not be motivated to care about the respect of others if you are starving and do not have a safe place to call home. These energy buckets come in 5 main categories, best described as physical well-being, security, relationships, cognition, and tranquility. Using Maslow's perspective, you've got physiology at the bottom of the hierarchy, which is comprised of your most basic physical requirements you need to not die, such as food, water, and sleep. Once these needs are met, he suggests that you're then motivated to seek security, or basically a safe place where you won't get sick from the elements or hurt from some animal trying to eat you or a rival trying to take whatever you have. Once you have that in place, you start to seek love or affection and relationships with others. After that, you're then motivated to seek esteem or respect from others, which is achieved through proving yourself both socially and in the eyes of yourself. And once those first 4 layers are achieved, you have finally cultivated enough motivation to pursue self-actualization, or trying to become all that you can be. Now, Maslow's take gives us a great starting point for how to address these needs, and it sounds simple enough. You work your way up from the bottom of the pyramid, and when you reach the top, you're a Zen master establishing the first colony on Mars. But we all know that the path to the top of this pyramid isn't always linear. We've all heard of someone who has become self-actualized and made their greatest contributions to society while either starving, being in prison, or even while in Auschwitz. And it's for these reasons that it's really easy to criticize this model, and we can do better. And we have done better. Here's a new mental model to guide your thinking about prioritizing your life, which you can test out for yourself. It's not so much a theory of motivation as it is a theory of well-being. And here you can see the needs presented as energy buckets that contribute to your overall well-being. If they're not all filled to a reasonable level, your ability to do good work, make decisions, learn, and just be a good friend or person to those around you is significantly reduced. As you can see, the basic ideas of a hierarchy are hidden in there, but these are hopefully more useful in a day-to-day sense. Now let's flip this model on its side. There are 5 energy buckets that break into 14 subcategories, and each subcategory contributes to the overall level in its energy bucket, with each energy bucket contributing to the overall level that is you, or your sense of well-being. And here's the kicker. Each of these needs attention in a dynamic way. Since they deplete at different rates, the priorities of each of these energy buckets, and even their subcategories, change over time, contrary to Maslow's hierarchy. This means that you need to pay attention to your mind and body, stay happy, not always in the order of physiology first. For example, some people meditate to start their day, which helps set the tone for how they will maintain their well-being throughout the day. On Maslow's hierarchy, this would be jumping straight to the top. But for this individual, we see that meditation sets the foundation for filling all other energy buckets. Personally, my energy buckets deplete in the order of physiology, relationships, cognition, security, and then tranquility, with a heavy emphasis on physiology and relationships. If I don't get to eat, exercise, and get in a few good daily chuckles with my friends, my whole day can be thrown out of whack. And it turns out the physiology bucket is one of the foundational energy buckets for everyone. Have you ever been hangry? If you haven't heard of the term, it means exactly what it sounds like. Hungry plus angry equals hangry. And when some people don't eat for a while, they get a short fuse and can snap at folks for the smallest things. A study from the Columbia Business School found that judges were more likely to dispense unfavorable sentences in parole hearings, meaning they denied parole, the closer they got to a meal break. And the authors argue that the hungrier the judges became, the more likely they were to drift towards an easier decision of saying no, rather than weighing the harder option of granting parole. And you may think that deciding what to eat and getting in a fight with your significant other is pretty uncomfortable, but imagine having to decide the fate of a person standing before you while on an empty stomach. The weight of the decision is much higher. And whether we think about the time we snapped at a friend or judge doling out justice, one thing is clear. Our basic biological needs affect our behavior. I love this example because it's easy to see a direct relationship between the physiology energy bucket and a person's well-being. And this is mainly due to this bucket requiring a refill every few hours or so. For the other energy buckets, it isn't as easy to directly measure the impact of it becoming depleted on such a short time scale, but they're still worth paying attention to just as much as physiology. For example, security has a few subcategories that deplete at different rates. Physical security may be somewhat of a constant depending on where you live, but as we've all seen in 2020, global events can impact this as well, such as COVID, wildfires, hurricanes, and so on. This can deplete seasonally, or if you live in a less safe environment, you may only be able to charge halfway given the constant level of threat that you feel you're under. Financial security also contributes to this energy bucket and can deplete weekly, monthly, or maybe a constant worry depending on how financially secure you are. Being more physically and financially secure can significantly reduce your levels of stress. The relationships energy bucket tends to vary more in terms of how much is needed for a given person to keep it filled. People that are more introverted can likely keep this bucket relatively full simply by seeing friends or family about once a week. Others that are on the more extroverted end of the spectrum likely need to see or talk to people almost daily. In either case, maintaining relationships tends to regulate your mood and has other less tangible benefits like maintaining your sociability. With respect to the cognition bucket, this again depletes depending on the individual. If you tend to be interested in or more mentally stimulated by what you do in life, whether it's your hobbies, work, or what have you, you'll likely find it much easier to keep this energy bucket filled. But for those who are weekend warriors who tend to hate their job or weekday activities and only fill this bucket on the weekends, that may be enough to sustain some, but could see a huge boost by either pursuing more enjoyable weekday activities or adding some spice on top of the necessary bland base that already exists. Lacking in this energy bucket can severely impact mood. And last, but arguably should be prioritized first, is the tranquility energy bucket. This can deplete on a daily basis depending on how well integrated mindfulness and gratitude are in your life. This also has a wide range of benefits, including understanding others, situations, and problems better. It can also help regulate mood and reduce stress levels. As I mentioned before, as you go through life, each of your energy buckets depletes over time or based on the events that happen. The good news is that you're naturally already taking care of a lot of these things. When you're hungry, you eat, thirsty, you drink, and so on. But in order to maintain total well-being, you need to constantly prioritize and reprioritize what needs attention. It's easier to think of the energy buckets as part of a whole that makes up your entire well-being. And you need to have faith in yourself enough to know that taking a break is not going to cause your career to halt, but in fact will give you the space to make better decisions about your priorities. And when you prioritize things that need your attention right when they need it, your overall well-being improves. And when your well-being improves, you get better at prioritizing what's important. It quickly turns into a beautiful positive feedback loop. And the best place to start is with some simple mindfulness. And to help you kickstart this positive feedback loop process, I'll ask you this. Which of the 5 energy buckets have you been letting get low too often? And what will you do this week to start filling them back up?